Brought to you by Penguin.
Ready for Absolutely Nothing, written and read by me, Susannah Constantine. Act 1. A Matter of Chance. November the 3rd, 1991, it turns out, was a pivotal moment. Unbeknown to me, I was about to meet the man who would go on to become my husband. But on that night in question, I was 40 days and 40 nights into a prolonged period of humiliation. I was in no mood for small talk. I'd been happily bonking Dolph Lundgren for a couple of months, but he'd now ghosted me and was refusing to return my calls. It was incredibly annoying, particularly since I didn't even like him. I'd now have to get drunk in order to walk into Alan Aldridge's book party alone. As an episode, this is a fairly good snapshot of my life, an anecdote about a rather ordinary woman who threw herself at the feet of a man in whose opinion she had absolutely no interest, who never once thought to question the patriarchy that raised her or what it did to her self-respect, who drank her way through both a wide range of social events, self-esteem issues, collected and lovingly cared for over the previous 30 years. It's an extraordinary story about some pretty ordinary truths. All in all, it was a night of highs and lows, but ultimately one that taught me never to give a Swede a blowjob if you don't think he'll recognise you with your clothes on 10 years later, in the queue for drinks at the premiere of Miss Congeniality. We live and learn. The journey to the night in question was one I regarded as fairly mundane. I considered myself the archetypal girl next door. A lot happened to me, but I was never the person at the centre of things. I was always someone else's plus one. I know I brought something to the table that people liked, and I knew I could hold my own, but I was only ever along for the ride, never the one driving the bus. The great thing was, from where I was sitting at the back, I could see everything, and the view was incredible. Meeting my husband that night and getting married was a watershed moment for a girl like me, who'd been prepared for little else. With a lifetime's expectation lifted from my shoulders, I was finally able to start taking myself seriously. But where the hell to start? Comforts and consequences. Things began unremarkably enough. In 1962, a few months after I was born, my parents, Joe and Mary Rose, bought number 6 Pelham Place in the heart of South Kensington, a Grade 2 listed Georgian house, which we all thought of as a modest home. The fact that this property would now go for over $7 million gives you an idea of just how cut off from normal life we really were. Pelham Place was an enclave of small, unostentatious stucco houses with shiny brass knobs on their black lacquer doors. There was no competitive planting in the neat front gardens, because horticultural one-upmanship was reserved for a place the inhabitants thought more important, the countryside. The owners of these townhouses were usually members of the landed gentry, and as the label suggests, it was their land that really mattered to them. A house in London need not stay in the family. It was not destined to be handed down to the eldest boy. A pied-à-terre in London merely gave them easy access to the things that weren't available or up to scratch in the countryside. The office, the doctor who prescribed your wife's tranquilizers, a trip to the theatre, mistress or rent boy, or an appointment to replenish a dwindling wine cellar. The countryside, however, was your true home. So there were no children's voices to be heard during the holidays and weekends in Pelham Place. There was also no packing of cases to travel between homes, because other than a toothbrush and a can of Elnet, there was nothing you'd conceivably need in both locations. Each had its own microclimate, demanding 2 wholly different survival kits. While my tatty old teddy bear Gelatin, so named in the erroneous belief this was Italian for ice cream, journeyed back and forth with me in our Mercedes saloon, the countryside was where his extended family waited in a uniform line atop my white damask bedspread in anticipation.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?